Strasbourg, July 1118. A woman steps into the street and begins to dance. No music is playing. There is no celebration, no feast day, no reason. She simply begins, and she does not stop. She dances for hours. She dances through the afternoon. She dances into the night. Neighbors watch from windows. They say nothing. They don't know what to say. By the second day, she is still dancing. By the end of the first week, 34 people are dancing beside her. They have not been invited. They have not been convinced. They simply joined, as if pulled by something they could not resist, or something they could not escape. And here is what you need to understand. This is not joy. These people are not celebrating. Watch their faces. Watch their feet. Their feet are bleeding. They are crying while they dance. Some are screaming, and they cannot stop. Word reaches the city authorities, the magistrates and guild masters of Strasbourg, men of reason, men of power. They call in the doctors, the best physicians the city has. They examine the dancers. They confer. They reach a conclusion, and the conclusion is insane. The doctors say too much hot blood, an overheating of the humors, an imbalance in the body's natural forces. The treatment, they agree, is obvious. More dancing. Dance it out of them. Let the affliction exhaust itself. The city council agrees. And so they do the one thing that makes everything worse. They hire musicians, drummers, pipers, fiddlers. They clear a public space, the marketplace. They build a wooden stage. They move the dancers to it, and the music starts, and the crowd, the watching crowd, begins to join them. Within a month, 400 people are dancing. 400. The music plays day and night. People collapse on the stage. They are dragged to the side. They rest for minutes, hours. Then they get up and dance again. Because they cannot stop. Because whatever this is, whatever has taken hold of this city, it has not finished with them yet. People are dying, not from a weapon, not from a disease. Anyone can see. From dancing. Their hearts are giving out. Their bodies, pushed beyond the limit of endurance, are simply stopping. And still, in the background, the musicians play. A woman watches her husband dance until his legs give out. He falls. He gets up. He falls again. She tries to pull him away. He cannot leave. His body will not let him leave. By nightfall, he is dead from dancing in the street in 1518. The city tries everything. They pray. They hold masses. They burn incense in the streets. They call it a curse from Saint Vitus, the patron saint of those afflicted with uncontrolled movement. They call it a punishment from God for sin, for pride, for something the city has done or failed to do. Nobody agrees on what. And here is the part that no one talks about. This was not the first time. The dancing plague of 1518 was not an isolated event. Records show outbreaks of mass dancing in 1037, in 1038-1, in multiple cities, multiple countries, over and over and over. For 200 years, people danced themselves to death, and nobody stopped it, because nobody understood what it was. It is the 21st century. We have tools the people of 15018 could not imagine. Brain scans, neurological research, decades of studying how the human mind breaks under pressure. And the answer that modern science has arrived at is both completely rational and more disturbing than any curse. The term is mass psychogenic illness, also called mass conversion disorder. The mind, under extreme, sustained, unbearable stress, converts that psychological pressure into physical symptoms, real symptoms, measurable, uncontrollable. The body becomes the expression of what the mind cannot process, and it spreads, person to person, like a virus, through shared trauma, through shared fear, through the simple, devastating power of witnessing someone else break. And what was Strasbourg living through in 1518? Famine. The harvests had failed for 3 consecutive years. People were starving. An outbreak of plague had swept through the city. Syphilis, a disease with no cure and no mercy, was tearing through the population. And over all of it hung a weight of religious terror so total, so absolute, that death was not just a physical reality, it was a spiritual sentence. Every day was the possibility of damnation, of hell, of punishment without end. The people of Strasbourg were not dancing because they were happy. They were dancing because they were broken. And when people break, the break has to go somewhere. The city authorities did not just fail to stop it, they made it worse. Every decision they made, the musicians, the stage, the public space, turned a private breakdown into a public spectacle. A spectacle that gave everyone watching a template, a permission slip, an unconscious signal. This is how we break here. This is what breaking looks like in this city. And people who were already at their limit found the limit and crossed it in the only way the city had shown them how. The dancing stopped in September, 2 months after it began. The surviving dancers, those still alive, still moving, were loaded onto wagons and taken to a shrine, a mountaintop chapel dedicated to Saint Vitus, the saint of uncontrolled movement, the patron of the afflicted. They were given red shoes, blessed, prayed over, and the dancing stopped as mysteriously as it began. The red shoes. Think about the red shoes for a moment. In the folklore of the time, and, later, in the fairy tale made famous by Hans Christian Andersen, red shoes are the symbol of unstoppable, uncontrollable movement, of dancing that cannot cease, of a curse that takes your feet from you. Andersen did not invent that image. He inherited it from 200 years of dancing plagues, from the people of Strasbourg, from the reality of what happens when a civilization breaks and does not know how to name it. 34 people died, the official count. Historians believe the real number is higher, died from dancing, in the street, in a city that first made it worse, then prayed it away, then moved on, as cities do, as people do. Because surviving a thing and understanding a thing are not the same. And Strasbourg survived 150-18. It did not understand it. Not for 500 years. Here is what we know now. Mass psychogenic illness is real. It is documented in hundreds of cases across history and into the present day. Schools in the American South, factories in Southeast Asia, villages in Sub-Saharan Africa. In every case, the pattern is the same. A community under profound stress, a trigger event, a physical symptom that spreads person to person without any pathogen, without any poison, carried only by the shared experience of suffering and the terrible human capacity to absorb it from one another. The people of Strasbourg were not crazy. They were not possessed. They were not cursed. They were human beings pushed past what human beings can carry. By famine, by disease, by fear. By a church that told them God was watching and found them wanting. By a life with no margin, no safety, no relief. The dancing was not madness. The dancing was the sound of a civilization screaming in the only language it had left. 500 years later, we still do not have a word for what happened in Strasbourg in 1518 that fully captures what it was. Mass hysteria sounds like a joke. Mass psychogenic illness sounds clinical. Neither one sounds like a mother watching her children starve. A man burying his third neighbor this month. A woman who has been told since birth that her body is sinful. Her suffering is deserved. Her only salvation is obedience to a God who has apparently decided to let everyone she loves die in a field. We don't have a word for what happens when a human being runs out of ways to contain what they are feeling. But we have the story, and the story is Strasbourg, and the story, if you are paying attention, is not old. The Dancing Plague of 1518. Strasbourg, the city that danced itself to death, and didn't know why, until now.